test, 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 test. Yes, it does. I love entering these races, because as an immigrant, you're often feeling like you're outside of the culture. You're not part of the people. There's a feeling of nikol, alienation. But when you are with 10,000 Israelis running, biking, swimming, there's a sense of oneness. And maybe that's not spiritual to some people, but for me, I just love being part of this people. We moved here 15 years ago, but I remember thinking, I must be the worst father in the world. I brought my kids to the Middle East. Bombs are exploding here. And I was scared. I remember that first day, I was so tired. We got to the place where we were going to be staying, and I remember we went to bed depressed, all of us. But we woke up the next morning, and you know what? Hit the ground running, never looked back. Learning Hebrew was the greatest challenge of my life, without a doubt. My plan was to come here, take 2 years off, learn Hebrew, be preaching, teaching, everything in Hebrew. Didn't go that way. It took me 7 years before I preached my first message in Hebrew. And I remember thinking, it's not going to happen. I will never learn this language. My brain was just arguing with me, Ron, we're not doing this. And yet we did. But I remember asking, I said, God, can't you just give me Hebrew supernaturally, download it to my brain? And he actually spoke to me. He said, yes, Ron, I can. But you're learning more than Hebrew. You're dying to yourself. You're being broken. I'm crushing your pride. You see, I could preach in Africa in front of 100,000 people. And then suddenly here I was in front of 45 people, terrified. So yeah, I learned Hebrew and a lot more. I love the congregation. I remember when I first came, didn't speak any Hebrew, and it's a Hebrew-only congregation. So for a while, I didn't understand anything, but I was surrounded by native-born Israelis who had embraced Yeshua. And then in 2013, when I became the lead pastor, I suddenly was living my entire life in Hebrew. Now, even though I was fluent in Hebrew, most of the time I'd speak English, but I suddenly had a staff except for one guy, nobody spoke English. So every staff meeting, every phone call, every WhatsApp conversation, every email, everything was in Hebrew, and it was awesome. So what does the future hold? Kol Yisrael Yivasha. All Israel will be saved. Romans 11:26. It's a prophecy. It's in the Bible. It's going to happen. It has to happen. And that's why we're here. We've situated ourselves to be in place to see this great revival in the end of the age. In Israel,